Hello, and thank you for downloading this episode of Discussing Documentaries with Rick Wharton and me, Matt Wills. Today, we are talking about The Dissident. It's provided by Amazon. It's from the year 2021. The director is the Academy Award winning Bryan Fogel. Now, he's the guy who did Icarus. Now, that is one of the most successful docs ever, and we reviewed that in episode 33. There's no
just
money.
Look for the one that says Icarus next to it. You don't need to look at the numbers. I don't know.
I like saying the numbers because I'm like, oh, we've done 33. Oh, brilliant. Because this will be...
Timestamp it, Matt. By the time someone finds us when we actually advertise, we'll be on episode 3000 when I've been switched out like 8 simple rules. As another working colleague decides to have a disdain for my attitude for some reason.
And welcome to our new co-host, Dave Bailey. Oh, we love that guy. Here's the blurb.
I will not be edited out.
Here's the blurb on this one. When journalist Jamal Khashoggi disappears in Istanbul, his fiancée and dissidents around the world piece together the clues to a murder and expose a global cover-up. It's been nominated for the Best Documentary at the 2021 BAFTA Awards. I'm guessing this is probably going to get an Oscar nod as well. Bryan Fogel's got form, right? Icarus was award-winning. Bryan Fogel can make a documentary.
Bryan Fogel has learnt his lesson because he stayed the fuck off camera in this one. He's already got Putin pissed off. Do you think he wants these guys on his case as well?
He's doing a superpower at a time.
Listen, if Bryan Fogel calls me, I'm patching it. There's no chance of answering, isn't there? Oh, what? Me and Kim Jong-il have got a fucking connection, have we? Get the fuck Bryan.
Now, this one is recommended by our Patreon supporter who isn't Dale. So this was recommended by Sarah. Now, she's recommended this one because she wants to educate her fellow Newcastle United. It is Newcastle United, isn't it?
No comment.
That looks so planned, but it wasn't. That was pretty funny.
The soon-to-be championship club of Newcastle United. I hope you're fucking happy, Sarah.
Sarah.
Sarah, my bad.
Right, so...
As a trope of discussing documentary, apparently we're really bad at learning female
women names. Yeah, we can't do it. Now, Sarah is trying to educate young Rick about the bad Saudi Arabia regime. And if you do wish to recommend a documentary for us to watch, you can easily do it. Just sign up to the Patreon. If you have already, thank you. Or if we've released this just for the Patreon, ha, suckers, have a pair of these. To those who can't hear this. They're parasites, Rick. Parasites, the one who are just freebies. Fucking parasites.
But thank you for your continuing support.
We're doing that. Now, today's offering is Rick's got some skin in the game here because Rick has been saying for the last 9 months.
I've chilled out on that a little bit if you go back through. Since we bulk recorded the first bunch, it may have seemed like I was talking about it an awful lot because I was very excited around about August, September time.
The funniest bit I remember you saying, and it still tickles me, is in Chicken People. Was where you were talking about you couldn't look at the chicken because it reminds you of the headscarf that the Saudis wear.
Yeah, so we finished recording one, and then we were doing one a day at the time.
Yeah.
And then we were super excited about getting these new mega rich orders, and then we got the message to say the deal had been pulled, and then I had to sit and watch fucking Chicken People.
That was very funny. So what Rick's talking about there is, Newcastle United... And this is why Rick's got skin in the game. Newcastle United Football Club were going to be bought by the king of Saudi Arabia, who, I mean, they've got a little bit of cash, right? And effectively, that would mean that Rick's team is no longer shit.
Yeah.
So, it didn't happen. Here we are, 8 months later, or 9 months later. Rick, lead us in on this one, mate, because this is Sarah torturing you. And Sarah is just to point out, Sarah is one of my favourite people on the planet. There's not a day goes by where I don't think about her or miss her. She's not dead; she's just in another country. And
well, if our WhatsApps have been read, who knows what's going to happen if she goes into a consulate?
But if you want to torture me or Rick like Sarah did, yeah, sign up for the £10 a month Patreon, and you get to recommend some documentaries. Although if we have thousands of you, we're going to have to rethink that because.
No, for that amount of cash, I'll do 40 a day. I will go through those the history of World War One, and then this guy comes in, and he looks a little bit like someone from.
We're just going to have a continued live stream of me and you watching telly. That's all it's going to be.
I've now got Matt's missus's number, so it's not to give him snacks during the day, so he can record on time. Did
you see that picture of that thing I sent you? My sister got me that for Christmas. They're biscuits, right? But they're biscuits that have been. It's my favourite biscuit, and they've been crushed up into a jar and turned into spread. And I was spreading it on the biscuits until I ran out of the biscuits.
It's the biscotti. It's the coffee biscuits, isn't it? Because they're lush. They're like proper little sugary biscuits. Biscotti or Biscoff or something like that.
They're like that, but it's not actually. Yes, it's a Biscoff Lotus biscuit from Germany.
The Biscoff Lotus, yeah.
That's the world's best biscuit.
When I saw that spread, and we will get to this Howard documentary in a second.
We will get to it, yeah.
We have touched upon one of the few things I know about, which is biscuits. When I saw that they've crushed up the biscuits and they've made it into spread, it made me think of, the marketing exec that's going like, do you know what? We drop so many of these fucking biscuits on the floor, the crumbs are everywhere, and it's just waste. Why don't we stick them in peanut butter? It's like when Polo started selling the holes. The guy was just like, we've got an idea, guys. Aren't they Smiths? Shut up, Ian. We're a yes company over here, not a problem company. We're a solutions-based company.
You'll never make it in Silicon Valley. Get out.
This is me getting fired from the Polo factory, another dream job I had. Going, what happened? Oh, I just try to help.
This is Rick. He's an ideas guy.
I'm an ideas guy. Don't ask me to follow up with work ethic and commitment.
Yeah, that's Matt's job. That's his department. Fucking knock that over to him. But I had this Biscotti. It's not Biscotti, is it? Is it Biscotti? You just said. My fucking memory is awful, isn't it? It is Biscoff. So I had this Biscoff crunchy spread in some ambrosia cream rice pudding.
Yeah.
That was my lunchtime snack. It didn't help get me through this documentary because this documentary this is the second day in a row we've done a miserable documentary.
Well, this chat right now is a bit like, do you know in Casino when they're doing a wiretap and they can't listen for so long if it's not pertinent information? So this is like when the prince checks out that his name's cropped up somewhere. They're like, it's all right, they're talking about biscuits, and then we can start talking about what happens on this. They have to click off every 30 seconds or so.
So lead us in, Rick. Just give us the general synopsis.
This is a one that I honestly, when I heard it was coming out, which I did hear it was coming out in September time-ish, I didn't fucking want to do it. I didn't. I honestly didn't. This is, I don't know. I just didn't really want to sit and learn this stuff. I'd rather be in blissful ignorance.
The
death of
I'm
Jamal
in agreement
Khashoggi.
with you, actually. Because I'll be honest with you, I didn't know anything about it because I've stopped watching the news until Sarah said, you've got to tell Rick about Khashoggi. And I went,
well, here's the thing.
Who's Khashoggi?
I went into such a rabbit hole regarding the Newcastle United takeover. I'm actually subscribed to the fucking Kingdom of Saudi Arabia royal letters that come out, the House of Saud. I looked up shit every day. I practically learned how to speak that language in order to work out where they are along in the process of the takeover. So if you don't think my internet algorithms come along with fucking Saudi Arabian information every 5 minutes, you got something like, and it was a case of everything else. I was just like, why did they have to kill the fucking journalists? Come on.
We'll get to that later, but I think that's the question we've got to cover at the end. Why would they?
Well, when the documentary starts, because obviously I'm still hanging out a little bit of hope. A little bit of hope that this still may go through. The arbitration courts for Newcastle United are in court now. I follow the lawyer Nick DeMarco on Twitter. Don't think I'm not in on this. Don't think if something happens about the Newcastle United takeover, my phone farts out information to us about it because they know I click on it.
The only time I've ever seen you work this hard was when you were convincing me to do the jinx. Jesus.
So I believe me. I was just like, okay, let's just hope this isn't too obvious. And then the start with that eerie music at the beginning. I'm like, well, they clearly have an agenda.
Well, right, just give us the general synopsis of the doc and what happens to Khashoggi.
Pretty much follows the story of what happens to Jamal Khashoggi. Jamal Khashoggi was, I think he worked for the royals at one point, and he was a journalist. Yep. He was like a spokesperson for them, and then he started speaking out. He sort of fled the country.
That's Saudi Arabia, yep.
Yeah, fled Saudi Arabia for speaking out against the regime, because a couple of years ago, they started to try and have this whole new, what's the word for it? Not repression, the other thing.
Reforms. They tried to reform.
Yeah, sorry.
So
it's not a word we hear a lot in our documentaries. So they did a whole bunch of stuff, and it came in my world in a certain amount of different. Obviously, there was the Newcastle thing, but MBS has been linked with takeovers of, say, Manchester United and a few others as well. But the wrestling WWE, they got booked. They got like a £1 billion deal to do 10 shows over 10 years in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
Oh, wow.
And when you went out there, they were the biggest stadiums. You were like, that was just ostentatious. It was mental. But the thing was, they put the royal family in the front rows who didn't give a fuck about wrestling. So you had all, like, the biggest stadiums you've ever seen. They were just massive, like beyond any World Cup thing, beyond anything like that. And it was just gargantuan, the size of this. And then this is all before the Newcastle takeover. So this all went in my head during the takeover stuff.
Of course.
And
so with the Saudis going to these wrestling matches then?
Yeah, because the Saudi people are like any other repressed country. They get certain amounts of TV. They're huge fans. They're regular people. Do you know what I mean? They're just a different religion in a repressed culture where you don't get a whole lot of news.
Well, and 80% of them are on Twitter. I mean, that is a staggering amount, right? Because only 20% of Americans are.
Yeah, that was a good little fact in it. And so during these wrestling events, they also started to do adverts for Prince MBS and how things like women are allowed to drive now and stuff like that. And this is what they're pushing. They're pushing a new image for Saudi Arabia, and they're all getting like huge investment and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But there is a story. There is a story of what happened to the wrestlers, right? There's a fascinating thing that happened. So there's an argument between Vince McMahon and the Prince of Saudi Arabia about the cash being transferred and when it gets transferred. So Vince McMahon, as a power move, switches off the feed to Saudi Arabia. So you can get it on the network, or the WWE network, but they're not getting it in Saudi Arabia. So once Vince McMahon, he jumps ship on his private jet after the show, pretty sharpish, because he has to get back to America and start the show for the next day. The Saudis grounded the plane, and it's the first time like 80% of the wrestlers missed the next night's show. They grounded them on the tarmac and held them on a plane for 23 hours. They're not allowed to talk about it. They're not allowed to tweet about it. Many of them are refusing to go back for the future shows because you better believe they're still taking the money off the Saudis. And then around this time, because they had one show in Saudi, then they killed Khashoggi. And then it was funny because The Undertaker came back. Like a big thing, like the guy who's been doing it 20 years, the old legend.
This is The Undertaker, the wrestler. You can't say they killed Khashoggi and then The Undertaker came back.
That'd be great if he came back with an urn. But so he's in the ring and he mentions that he's fighting in Saudi Arabia, and the audience goes mental, booed the shit out of the WWE because everyone else pulled their business. The UFC had business there. Regular companies that I don't watch the sport of had huge amounts of companies there, and they all walked away except for WWE. So WWE had terrible fucking like PR off the back of still going.
Yeah.
And from that point on, they never mentioned the words Saudi Arabia again. They just said the name of the town or the name of the pay-per-view. Crown Jewel is what the pay-per-view was called.
Right. Okay.
So, but when you see just the cash thrown at them and be like, well, that's going to improve Newcastle United's back four if they get in charge. Do you know what I mean? You just got that in your mind.
I don't know if it will, but yeah, maybe it would. But just
Matt,
tell
I
us
guarantee
the general...
I guarantee it, right? It is a numbers game by where you finish in the league to what wages you pay. If you don't think Thomas Suchek's going to a club to go pay him 100k extra within 2 years, you're a madman. And
I've got a lot of respect for you, Rick. Back the fuck away from Suchek.
David Moyes is going to be the next. David Moyes is going to be the next Spurs manager sacked because turns out he got lucky with a really good team one year. Anyway, we have talked for a long time for getting into this document.
So tell me about Jamal Khashoggi. Just give us the general gist on the doc. I know I've said it in the blurb, but
yeah. So he flees Saudi Arabia because he speaks out about the crown, and that does not go down well in one of these countries at all. He's living in America, I believe, working for the Washington Post.
Yes, yeah.
He has to divorce his family because they're not allowed out the country. Or
God, he has to divorce his wife. Yeah, because he has to
his wife, his family.
So he doesn't get them in trouble, right?
To marry his fiancée.
Her full name is Hatis Cengiz.
Hatis Cengiz. He wants to marry her, and they don't want a big do so. Basically, they have to get a document from the Saudi Arabian embassy in Turkey to prove that he's no longer married.
This is 2018, October.
They say, come back in a few days' time.
Yeah, really nice to him.
He comes back, and there's 15 Saudi officials which have landed in Turkey on royal jets, state diplomatic clearance, and they also have recordings of him being killed.
Yeah, and they kill him. His missus waits outside for 12 hours. If that was in England, she wouldn't have questioned it, would she? But she's like, hang on, because Turkey don't have a queuing problem. But yeah, she's like, hang on. She phones up a journalist, and then all hell breaks loose. And here we go. We've got the documentary a couple of years later of exactly what did happen to Jamal Khashoggi when he went into the embassy. And it is a brutal documentary. It's a hard, tough watch, right? It's a really tough watch. It's
really good. I think
it's really good, but tough. You're don't teach me this. What, the whole world is against us? Oh, leave it out. No. But let's give some. So effectively, the Saudi royal family are implicated in this murder, and that's what the documentary is about. Now, I've met a few of the Saudi royal family, right? So I feel it would be good podcast and journalist etiquette to give them a little bit of a balanced view, right? So
What's that?
Well, I've met them. I was a bellboy in a hotel for years, and that's the hotel they used. So I've met a few of these people, and they're really good tippers.
I imagine they are.
I don't remember much else about them, but they tipped incredibly well.
I tell you what, I had to go and get a bone saw at 3 a.m, but they give me a 20 crisp £20 note for doing it.
They did. They tipped very, very well. And also, there was a guest we used to have who lived in Saudi Arabia, and he would come over. He would stay at the Saudi because we had a hotel in Saudi Arabia, the same brand, and he would live there, and he would live in our hotel, and he was an oil guy. And yeah, he tipped me when I left. I mean, he would tip me all the time anyway. But on the day I was leaving, he went, I think you're awesome. He gave me a red note, which was at the time £50.
Wow.
Listen, that was a lot of money to get as a tip.
No.
Wow. Yeah, if I got that now, I'd still be impressed,
If you think I've held many red notes, you've got another thing coming there, Matt, all right?
Yeah, Mr. McCall, his name was. He was just the loveliest fella. Anyway, I'm just giving a balanced view on the Saudi royal family because we're just about to talk about them in not such a nice way.
I think it's a very pertinent bit of information because these are the people that can grease the wheels into fucking anywhere, aren't they? Quite frankly.
Yeah. There were bits of this documentary I just didn't understand. So effectively, he goes into the embassy. He doesn't come out. His missus speaks to a reporter. All hell breaks loose. And then the Turkish police get involved. And you've got to fucking doff your cap to the Turkish police because those guys get an investigation done, don't they?
Yeah. Well,
I mean, they really did. They wasn't initially allowed into the embassy, but then they were like, yeah, look, we got to come in. We know, strictly speaking, even though it's in Turkey, it's not Turkish land, is it? It's actually Saudi Arabian land. It's the equivalent of Saudi Arabia. And same as the British consulate. That's actually British territory that the land's on. Yeah.
I already know that via The Simpsons when they go to Australia.
Right, yes, absolutely. Is there anything The Simpsons hasn't taught us?
Well, unfortunately, that doesn't mean I know everything. I've just seen all of The Simpsons. I know very little, but I've seen a lot of The Simpsons. So they go into the Saudi monarch backstory. They own half of the world's oil.
Actually, it's 80% of the world's oil.
80% of the world's oil. You telling me Newcastle wouldn't be in the Champions League if that happened in the summer? Because I guarantee.
Yeah, maybe.
But anyway, back to true facts and horrific
and misery,
crimes.
Yes.
Can I just say, Mike Ashley actually employs below human rights work ethics as well. So.
Yeah, but he's no Saudi, is he? That's
Yeah, he doesn't tip like a Saudi. That's the difference. So
I haven't met Mike Ashley yet, but give it time.
You see footage of them going around the Saudi embassy, and they're like, "Do you know when something smells suspiciously clean?" Because they just said we have him in custody, and like we have your CCTV footage. He hasn't left this building. We have to come in.
He? Yeah.
So where is he? And they went and go, something smells suspiciously clean. And then they put that blue light on, which they're using CSI. And it's basically just like an outline of blood. You're like, oh, you fucking animals.
Well, it's blood or someone's ejaculated a lot, right? That's what it is. Because there's a lot of it.
Yeah.
A little bit of history on Saudi Arabia. So Abdulaziz ibn Saud ruled from 1932 to 1953. He had about 37 sons or so. What does no one know? What do they stop counting after 15? What's the rule here?
Well, the funny thing is, there was like the power grab that MBS did. So he basically rounded them all up and then locked them into the Ritz.
Yes.
And held them there for like 60 days until they signed over all their land, power, and companies.
Yeah, and these were billionaires, right, who were basically locked up. I mean, in the Ritz, admittedly, but, locked up is locked up.
I tell you what, I think Big Brother would be a hell of a lot fucking better if that's what it was. If you were to lock 100 billionaires in until they're each fucking tapped out.
I'd watch that. Yeah, that's a good idea. So MBS, who we're talking about, is King Mohammed bin Salman, and he's the current king. I love that he's MBS. We all know that means.
Well, that again goes to that marketing they did. They did do an aggressive marketing campaign of the reform of trying to put a positive face on the kingdom.
Yeah.
The problem is they're batshit crazy. Like
they are, yeah. They are a little bit mental. So. The facts that you're peppered with throughout this documentary. So the Arab Spring started in 2011, and then a few years later it was crushed. And Jamal Khashoggi said it was crushed by the Saudi Arabians, the regime. And
because they're scared of anti-change.
Yeah, because they've been in power for near on 100 years, right? So, like you said, it's a dictatorship over there.
Well, tell you what, you try and get the people with the fucking shiny hat in this country out, see what happens.
Yeah, so we've got a royal family.
The only difference is they I mean, don't get me wrong, they just collect the money and sit in the fancy houses, and a few of them like children a little bit too much. But if they had a bit more of a political, because they didn't have any abstain from Parliament until they want something to happen, then it happens. That's kind of how they operate.
Basically, yeah.
Woo! Rule Britannia. Do you remember that song as a kid when you waved flags and had bunting?
So Khashoggi spoke out against the regime, and that's why he had to leg it. But here's my problem with democracy. Once the Arabs got democracy, so, Tunisia, Egypt, etc., they're fucked. Because they then can't go and, with their machine guns, and go, oh, we want you out. They're like, well, you voted us in. Because we can't go and kick out the current government, can we? We're like, well, actually, you were voted in. It doesn't matter if I voted for you or not, because it's democratic. So they are my government.
We
whether
counted the votes in that box we gave you, and it definitely said that I won. The other guy, unfortunately, committed a lot of crimes that won't go to trial, and he's in jail now. Because that's actually what happened in Egypt. The guy who ran against the main regime was jailed for 5 years. He's a talking head on the documentary. And if these people spoke English and had easier to pronounce names, it would be a lot easier to do this fucking podcast. Because there are some like important fucking figures within it, but you're like, sorry.
There's a lot of talking heads in this. A lot.
I think the same amount of lactose intolerance I have, which is about 11%-ish. So like if I have too much milk or too much dairy, I've got a problem, is the same amount of dyslexia I have. So it took me about... Right. Took me about 3/4 of the fucking documentary to see one of the main protagonists, Omar, to learn his name.
Yes, so he is Omar Abdulaziz. Now, I mean, his story is just tragic, but him and Khashoggi were mates, and Khashoggi started following him on Twitter. Now, Omar only had 100 followers on Twitter, and apparently the Saudi government are not worried about him slagging them down, because he only had 100 followers. So I reckon we'll probably be all right on this podcast, Rick. We can say what the fuck we like, right? Because
Sarah better watch out, though.
Yeah, she's got more followers than us. So he basically then sets up a YouTube channel, and he starts getting pretty big. And Khashoggi went, we can do something with this. We can really have a go at the Saudi royal family. And basically all Khashoggi's doing every single time is all the articles he's writing for the Washington Post, they're just nails in his coffin, right?
Yeah. And there's the thing of, then you see the MBS is creating, so like, you see the room they have, of like, they've basically created the Twitter troll army.
Yeah,
so if
to silence the dissident voices, yeah.
200 people that are all controlling 20 accounts, and anything that goes out just gets jumped on, lampooned. Yeah. And they're called the Flies.
Yes.
And it's just, these are world opinions being formed of sort in the social dilemma. We've seen traits of everything that's going on in this world is like a manipulation of this propaganda machine of how, I don't even know how to talk about it. It's just the false narrative put forward, and the amount of people that see it on face value and walk through it.
Yes. Yeah.
Just becomes so powerful. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And there's George Orwell, right, from his grave going, I fucking warned you. I warned you. I wrote about this in the 50s. I warned you all, and you've done nothing about it. You walked into it because you could have Tetris and a camera on your phone. You fucking idiots.
I think George Orwell might have been Alex Jones with a degree.
Yeah, maybe, right?
Because Alex Jones is famous. That's the globalists are coming. That's the conspiracy guy. He basically predicted. Yeah, he predicted a 9/11 style attack in some form or other every day for 19 years, and then 9/11 happened, and they just showed the clip of him predicting that.
I told you. Yeah. The Twitter in Saudi Arabia is referred to as the Parliament of the Public because there's so many of them on it, and that's why MBS wants to control it.
And in America, because their TV's state-run, because it gets to the end, that's an important fact to it. But in America, 20% of usership is on Twitter, whereas in Saudi Arabia, 80% is.
Yeah. So the Saudi consulate, on the day that Khashoggi went back to pick up his I'm definitely not married to anyone else certificate, which seems a weird certificate, doesn't it? Is that a Muslim thing that I don't understand?
No, it's a legal thing.
I've never heard that. What? So you'd have
I imagine I imagine he wasn't getting his mail sent from fucking Saudi Arabia. Do you know what I mean? I think there is some kind of things of, is this definitely an old, because he did whatever that had to happen, so his family's fine. He's kind of the same way the Russian dude had to leave his family in
Grigory
America.
Rodchenkov.
That's the one.
Episode what is it? Episode 33? Yeah, Icarus.
Or the Icarus episode, yes.
Do you not think Khashoggi looked like Grigory Rodchenkov? They had the similar
build. If only he could run that fast.
Had the little pot belly, the little
just
beard.
Didn't have the cardio.
Right, where are we? So on the day that Khashoggi was killed, 70 pound of meat was ordered for the consulate, and they believe that they burnt the meat along with his body to cover up the smell.
Man, and every part of it's just awful. Like
the
detail it goes into, because it's like 50% the murder of Khashoggi, and that goes into a fascinating depth of true crime and everything you like to see.
Yeah.
From the investigation to, like, there's audio of it, But
how did they get the audio?
I think the rooms are bugged in those ones.
But why would the Saudi consulate release the tapes?
Because I don't think they thought they would have to. There's an arrogance involved. There's a fucking guy with a crown making decisions of people disappearing. There's stuff he doesn't think's going to come back to him.
Because you get they've got transcripts of everything that was said when they killed this man.
Even I think they've got the audio, but obviously it's not in English.
The audio. Yeah.
It's not like they're going to be speaking. I mean, if there's a Geordie in there going, "Wait, get off us!" There, wait.
But it's the fact that they got that, and that they had that in this documentary. That's the bit I didn't understand. Like, how the hell did they get that?
And they show the corpse was moved to a consulate official's house, the council official's house, or whatever it was. They find the tandoori oven, which was used to burn the body. There's a well, and they went, "We want to have a look in the well." And went, "No, you're not allowed to look in the well as per our agreement," which is like, we need to search your house. You can search everywhere except for the massive well in my basement. You're not allowed.
No, you can't look under the patio, said Fred West.
If it was up to me, I'd let you, but the missus is very particular on who goes down the well. All right.
So Omar Abdulaziz starts his YouTube channel, and effectively he starts getting popular. So then the Saudi royal family contact him and say, "Yeah, you can come home. Set up a TV channel
This
here."
is before Jamal was murdered as well.
Yeah. And Jamal's like, "Don't trust him. Don't fucking
Jamal's
trust him."
Fuck them guys, because they're like, because they've got the audio too, because he recorded their conversations with them.
Yeah. They come over to meet him and said, "Listen, you are protected."
They go, "Look, you're protected. Prince loves you." All right. And then they go over and they're like, "Listen, we want to come over and meet you, but we'd like to bring your brother with you. Your brother's a really great guy. Doesn't really understand the magnitude of what's going on, your brother." And the funny thing for that is,
mafioso style intimidation, right? Yeah. It's terrifying.
It's Godfather 2 when he just has to look at his brother in the car and then he doesn't grass them up to Congress.
Yes.
The guy who slashes his wrist at the end just has to say his brother.
Yeah.
But so they go over and it's like The Interview, do you know the Seth Rogen, James Franco movie? So they bring over they bring over their Parky, their Parkinson, fucking Piers Morgan, their fucking Jeremy Clark, whatever you want, their state-run chat show host, to be like, "Listen, if you come over, you'll have your own show.
You can say whatever you like. You know no censorship."
He is such a fan of you saying he's a despot. He loves it. Loves it every night. Watches it.
A month later, his brother and both his brothers and 22 of his friends all arrested.
This is what cracked me up, because just say that happened to me, right? If I mean, my brother, I don't know how you'd do in jail. He's a bit sarky. But for 20, if you were to arrest, if I was like on the lam from Saudi Arabia, and they went, "Let's arrest 23 of his friends." After number 10, that's a mild acquaintance. Who has 23 close friends? So there is someone,
good
if you arrested the 23 people closest to me, the 22nd person would be Matt's cat. What? That guy? Where am I in jail for what he's doing?
Button scores much higher up on there. That is a fucking good shout, right?
23, like, mild acquaintances.
Yeah, I probably know 6 people, right? Who I genuinely spend time with, who I'd call my friends, right? Yeah. Everyone else, there's just a person on Facebook who I'm keeping in touch with in case I need a kidney one day, right? Because you never know. Right? He then he says he's lonely and he meets.
Well, he's working for the Washington Post at this time. Oh, and I forgot to mention, because this guy's peppered into it as a character. Do you know when he's got all the royals locked up in the Ritz?
Yep. MBS.
Donald Trump comes out and praises him for it and says, "There's a new sheriff in
Doesn't Trump say something like, "Well, you know families, you can't get involved"?
Yeah. Hey, do you know what? I admire his efforts to this. He's a second-hand car salesman. He's a fucking boob, that guy. How he ever got in?
It's amazing. So, Khashoggi's lonely, right? So he's had to give up his children. He's had to give up his missus. So he says to his mate, he goes, "Look, I'm lonely. So his mate sets him up to meet a woman, and they do it in such a Victorian fashion. So there's chaperones and everything. And then he says, let's take this to the next level. Now, the next level to me, I don't know about you, Rick, but it's it's probably a hand job in the back of a car. I don't know, maybe maybe smoke a joint together, have a laugh. That's the next level.
If you think I'm making jokes on this serious subject, you've got another thing coming.
but the next level to him is marriage. When does that become the next level?
I think it's a watered-down version of their romantic relationship. Do you know what I mean? They're two intellectual people who get together. There's not going to be too many great stories which can even scratch the surface on what we're watching now. There's fucking princes taking over the world and fucking death squads flying into embassies and chopping people up. You can't be like, do you know what? It's when we went to Nando's.
That was the next level
and
for
then
me.
He did this impression of a TV show I watched as a child, and I thought, like you can't, it just doesn't add up. So yeah, they had
because there's a 25-year age gap between them. He goes to see her dad, and he turns around to his daughter, right, the dad, and he went, "He's a lot older than you, love." And they went, "Yeah, but legally it's okay, so let's get married." Well, hang on, I'm still against old men marrying young ladies.
Well, I think the reason why that's included, because again, I have followed the Saudi story to quite a far extent for me, for something that I would pay attention to. Now, we find out in a minute, which we will get to, why this probably was, but there was a lot of information being released that she was a spy and not really his fiancée.
Oh, okay. All right.
And the one thing that did kind of upset me from Newcastle United fans, when she spoke up about the fucking takeover, she got a lot of shit off Toon fans. She had like, I mean, if you
I
imagine
remember
like
that. I do remember that.
The geopolitical landscape and the death and the life involved, and there's moving parts, and there's people going, "Will you shut the fuck up? We're trying to get this through."
We want to sign Kevin De Bruyne. Shut it up, woman.
Will you shut your face? We need a new holding role midfielder. And it was that level. You can tell someone angrily typed that on Twitter while eating a Greg's.
And this poor woman, right? This poor woman has got a strength that I couldn't even contemplate having. So, right, before he's killed, he's working with Omar Abdulaziz, and they create a counter army against the flies known as the bees. And they promote and, they champion the truth. And they get their hashtags pushed to the top of the agenda, even in Saudi Arabia.
Well, this is when it goes to show just how massive it is. They don't. They've got like 500 people operating 80 accounts. No matter what they do, they can't get their message across. It's just drowned out. Anything in Saudi, you have like a fucking factory of people tweeting and tweeting and tweeting and tweeting. And I think it was good that you showed the footage of them doing that, because people don't quite believe it. You go, "Oh, there's Russian bots creating this happening in America," or this propaganda machine. And then when you see it for real,
yes.
And again, it sheds a light on it. Again, these documentaries have social import,
and they will have each person. So they might have a team of 300-400 people in the Saudi Arabian army, Twitter army, doing this. They'll each have 20 plus Twitter accounts each, at least. And they're all backing one another up, aren't they? So that hashtag, the way the Twitter algorithm works, is like, oh, fucking hell.
You'll also
effectively
catch along the people who agree with it, not like that's their way inclined, and then it blows up.
Well, it must be true because it's on Twitter and it's trending. So look, all of these people are saying it's true. It can't not be true. Basically, we need a Twitter army, Rick, to push this documentary podcast thing. Otherwise, we're going to be working in corals together, and I'm not looking forward to it.
I've retired, Matt. I will go hungry before I do that again.
Right.
I'm not good at maths. I've created problems for myself. I'm bad at maths. I've got fucking killed a few times working in bookies.
His fiancée, Hatice Sengiz, she basically says, look, we were choosing apartments. He was furnishing the apartment. I couldn't believe how happy his lazy boy chair made him.
Same one I've got.
Yep. Rick, why don't you handle
Simple.
this one? Why don't you
It's great. It's
air
got a little
fryer, sell it to us, Rick? Come on.
it's got a little USB thing on the side so you can plug your vape pen in. It's fucking excellent. Yeah.
You don't have to actually do the movement because it's all electronic, right? So it's got a motor in there.
The problem is it now.
I carried
There's
that thing
something-
off the back of a van. It's really heavy.
Oh, I forgot you did that. God bless you for doing that.
Yeah, it's bloody Rick.
I had to stay behind in London and get dressed down by my former landlord for being when it was being a fucking cock.
I had
Did I ever
to,
tell you I took a dive during that? Just a little side story during this, if we're talking about my move.
Go on.
So basically, when Matt helped me move up, he very kindly took my reactive dog, my girlfriend, and he drove the van up to the new place in the northeast. I stayed behind to do the handover with the landlord the next day. He turns up late. My mate, bless him, had sat on his car keys and electronically taken his windows down overnight, so his car filled with water. So he sat in a wet car waiting for us, and I'm like, this shouldn't be too long. We'd hired cleaners, we got the carpets done, we did everything we possibly can, but there was a lot of shit that didn't fit in the van. So I'm like, if he doesn't look in the shed, we're fine. All right, we'll get through. And the first thing he does, he goes under the stairs and he pulls out like just a roll of duct tape and goes, well, that can go with you. And I'm like, oh my God, it's got to be this level of a thing. Oh, do you know when Andy Dufresne gets his cell tossed?
Yeah.
In Shawshank, that's what it felt like. It went through every nook, every cranny of it. If anyone actually owns property and rents it out, they're thinking I'm a dick right now. But this guy was anally fucking retentive. And he'd went through everything. He'd went through, and he went like behind areas that we had never even been behind, living there, like places.
Where did that room come from?
We never even had a loft. There was stuff my previous flatmate had nailed onto the wall we couldn't get off, and it just took forever. He systematically went through this like 600-point checklist before I could get the hell out of there and finally move up and help you guys unpack up north. And he went to go and walk into the garden, and he was about to look in the shed, and I purposely chucked myself off. Do you know, there's like 2 steps.
Yeah.
I slipped myself. And, oh, Judge! Like that. And I slipped. He went, what? I went, listen, before you go in there, I'm going to have to tell you. But before he looked in there and looked back at me, I just had to get his attention quickly before he looked in there and went, what the fuck is, you know, garden equipment is basically what was in there. But if you went off it about duct tape, it was going to be a problem. So I literally chucked myself on the floor and went, oh, Judge! Oh, and then when he got too close to us, I started coughing.
And he didn't look in the shed?
No, he looked in the shed. I just had to break the tension before he went in there.
Okay.
But he didn't go past the bush where I chucked all the dog shit.
And luckily for if anyone is renting property, Rick now owns a property, so he's not back on the renting ladder, so he's not going to fuck you or your shed over.
Yeah, I forgot there's 2 different class systems listening to this podcast.
Where were we? Right. Oh, yeah. So, right. He had his recliner chair. I used to actually own one of those recliner chairs as well. So, that's one of the best relationships I've ever had, me and that big blue chair.
The dog knows when I'm leaving the room now because I have to press the button to put the feet down, so he gets ready so he can sneak out and try and get in the kitchen to get another snack for getting out of the kitchen. So if that comes down, he's just like...
So he goes into the embassy. He doesn't come out. His wife gets worried, phones a journalist, as we've said. The shit hits the fan. This is how much shit hit the fan. 2 days later, 200 journalists are outside the embassy. Now, the person who thought up the plan to kill Khashoggi is like, yeah, I didn't foresee this. Why the fuck did they kill him? There's better ways they could have done away with him. That's the bit I didn't get. They could have run him over, right? Just in the street. Have you seen the drivers in Istanbul? It's insane, right? Those roads are deadly.
It chops in and out, but basically they get to a really interesting part of the documentary, which kind of describes it. Because it's chopped up between the murder and the online Twitter stuff, and then the next big reveal is the spyware.
Well, yeah, it's called Pegasus. Yeah,
from the NSO company. So what happened is they had the spyware, and they had it on Omar's phone, and the message between Omar and think of how they're coordinating against the Saudis, and they start to win once they get to number 1 of where's the bees or whatever.
because they know who the bees
whatever
are,
the
right?
Fire Festival Twitter thing is, and they're like, right, this is moving on too much. He gets made an example of, I think, and I do think he's a hothead. If from learning about the WWE thing, they kept 25 roided up fucking monsters on a plane for 24 hours, not letting them off with armed guard to make a point. Like, and that's national. That's going to come out. Do you know what I mean? He's just like, no, sorry. I am the reformist. Women can drive now, but if you look at me wrong, you're getting locked up in whatever room I find you in, and whatever happens to you fucking happens to you. Because there's just they refer to him as like an old school dictator monarch because it's his land and you're the serfs that are in his land. Don't you ever dare challenge me.
And no one's ever challenged him, right? Because they can't. And that Pegasus software, effectively, it turns your phone into a listening and a watching device, and you don't know about it. I mean, good luck if they want to put that on my phone. I can't even I can barely get the phone part of my phone working.
Well, so the online backlash, and this is the part of the documentary that's not as sad but fascinating and scary at the same time, is so they have what's the thing in the desert conference for the investors?
Davos in the desert.
Davos. I didn't think it was dancing. I didn't think it was Theranos. I knew it was close enough. Davos in the desert, and they're talking about getting investment into Saudi Arabia.
Huge investment, because that's what reformists need, right? Money.
Yeah. And they, what's it? So everyone's pulling out their money, as I said. All these big public things that they're going to be a part of, to put their name on, to put their face on. I've seen snippets of it, obviously, of the stuff I've...
Yeah.
They all pull out. And again, for this, the secret guest was going to be Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, the owner of Amazon. Yeah.
Who was announcing a partnership with Prince MBS, with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
Well, they're mates, right? This is how matey they are. They WhatsApp each other. And then Jeff Bezos, he ghosts MBS. How fucking much money have you got that you can ghost the King of Saudi Arabia? Go fuck yourself, King. I'm Jeff Bezos, mate.
We can watch 1,000 more documentaries if we find another one when Jeff Bezos is the good guy. Like,
yeah,
that is evil top trumps right there. And so what happens is it starts to come out that Jeff Bezos had an affair, and it's like, well, how did people find this out? Yes. So he gets the very top IT forensic guys in.
Yeah.
And they track it to the spyware that was sent personally by Prince MBS in a WhatsApp message to him. It's actually from Prince MBS's account. Yes. And it's like their little video of their partnership thing. When you hit play, it downloads onto his phone. So his phone then becomes a microphone, everything that happens on it, and they're in control of it. So they had everything, and they're releasing info on Bezos. And I thought the funniest thing was the text from MBS to Bezos, when he's just like, hey, whatever you're hearing about us isn't true, you know. You'll find out the truth eventually. Like some guy who's trying to explain to his ex that he was just staying at a friend's house that night. Why are you going on about it?
Well, the thing is, right, if Bezos owns the Washington Post, who Jamal Khashoggi
that's
works
another
for,
thing.
right?
So they thought that Bezos would sweep it under the carpet the same way MBS would.
And he won't, right? Because he's like, nah, it's a separate division, mate.
He goes for the justice for Jamal.
Yeah, so, and that's what the Washington Post set up, was justice for Khashoggi, yeah. Now, if Jeff Bezos, if his phone was hacked, what chance do the rest of us have?
That's exactly what I was about to say.
He's the richest guy on the fucking planet, right? And they screwed him over.
Those DHL downloads, I can think to a couple. I guarantee everyone's phone is within this Pegasus fucking system.
Yeah. So what chance do we have? If they can get to Bezos, they can get to us.
That was my exact fucking point. If Jeff Bezos is in there, we're in there. They've got fucking everything.
Yeah, right? So they're looking at my WhatsApp messages to my sister. Is that what's... Them poor bastards. Right?
And actually, Matt put the Pegasus software within the Chicken People episode, so...
We need these people, Rick. I'm telling you, we need the bees or the flies. I don't care. No, just let's get our message out there. # Discussing Documentaries.
That really is the Newcastle dilemma, isn't it? Do you want the bees or the flies?
Omar Abdulaziz, his brothers are put in prison, and then he talks about it because they're tortured. One of them has all his teeth ripped out. It's fucking brutal. He starts crying. It's horrible. It is absolutely horrible. All his friends are being tortured. his brother's being tortured, and there's nothing he can do about it apart from carry on making YouTube videos slagging down the people who are torturing his family and friends. But he says, look, if I don't talk out about them, they've won, and I'm not going to let them win. Where's the line here? Because if they got you and they started torturing you and said, like, stop doing the podcast, or, you know, Rick's going to get tortured some more, I'd be like, oh, fuck it, I quite like Rick.
It's funny because we're about 3 weeks away from Matt getting that exact offer. But the thing is, they start, like, this is, I mean, we're going backwards and forwards because it kind of chops between this information and what happened to Khashoggi and the Omar story. And they go in, and, like, when they're going to Omar going, well, if you're not going to come back now, because obviously he's being nice with him on the phone because he's not that stupid.
Yeah.
Just go and get your passport renewed. Just go to our embassy.
Just in case. You never know. You might want a holiday in Saudi Arabia one day.
You might get the ticket and come back and do your TV show. Just go on in there. They'll give you your documents. And it's just, man. And it was Jamal who convinced him not to do that.
Yeah.
And he says, and again, it's an overload of information that we've just watched. But it's kind of like there's messages between Jamal and Omar that is like that's the smoking gun that killed them, basically.
But but the US guy, right? Was he in the CIA? He went, yeah, it wasn't a smoking gun that we've got on the Saudi royal family. It was a smoking saw, because that's the tool they used to cut up.
They've got the audio of explaining what to do to him, how to kill him, holding him down while being suffocated. They bought a bone saw, a Robert Durst bone saw. Yeah. They, to be honest though, cinematically within the documentary, the way they present this in the transcripts is better than having someone listen to it and look at their reaction as they're listening to it. You hear that, Werner Herzog? You hear that? This is why Bryan Fogel is kicking your ass right now.
This is why he got the Oscar, Werner. This is why.
I think Grizzly Man may have got an Oscar.
I still get shit off of my German mate for going, yeah, Werner Herzog. He's done some acting as well. The United Nations get involved, right? This is how fucked up this whole thing gets. Agnes Callamard, she's a United Nations rapporteur, and that's a person who's appointed by an organisation to report on the proceeding of its meetings. And she starts reading out, and you start seeing transcripts of the killing. They're a tough read, man.
Has the sacrificial lamb arrived?
Yeah.
And then you also see the conference room he's put into, which has cameras on it, so that they're basically implying the prince could have been sat there watching from an evil chair.
Yeah.
And I've seen what his house looks like due to clickbait during the Newcastle takeover. He's got like, do you know when you have like a corridor down your house, you have like a fish tank in there? He's got it's sharks. He's got sharks swimming around the fucking over your head as you're going in places.
But he might need them sharks for the oxygen, as we found out in Seaspiracy. So, you know, he could be doing a good thing there. Yeah, I'm just saying, we need to give a balanced view on the Saudi royal family. Balanced view. Good tippers. Don't forget that. Now, they released the transcripts, right? And the United Nations went, look, this is these people talking about how they're going to use a bone saw to cut him up. And then President Donald Trump says, well, listen, you know, they might not have been connected to the Saudi Arabian regime. They might have been rogue killers.
He doesn't say might. He doesn't say might. He says they were. I'm hearing that they're rogue killers.
But all killers are rogue, aren't they?
There's other footage of them say because they corner him on John Oliver, which John Oliver shows the footage of the news reporters. Will you just diss him? And he's like, was Khashoggi even a US citizen? And they go, he was. He went, oh. Well, listen, I'm not going to... Look, I sold them this helicopter for $4 million, and that's peanuts to them. And he's a second-hand car fucking salesman, man.
But everyone, bar the President of the United States, right, is saying that they're guilty, the Saudi Arabian regime. That's the head of the CIA.
Listen, Matt, let me tell you this. If they're in Bezos's phone, you better believe he sent Trump a picture of tits he clicked on, and they're in Trump's phone, and he is not fucking around.
But once again, I think we should give a big doff of the cap to the Turks for the investigation they did. Whoa, man. They got the job done, man. They did. And I just watching this and just how much everyone's being monitored and how controlled the message is out there, you kind of take your freedom of speech for granted, right, when you see shit like this. But then on the other hand, you think, well, it's not freedom of speech either, is it?
Hey, you're allowed to shout into a forest as long as no one's listening.
Yes. Yeah.
But there's things like, you see them, it's the UN summit, and they start talking, and you see the Saudi delegates just listening on their earpieces, and they talk about how they definitely did it, and then they basically have to just look straight ahead and be like, we will not remove this from our courts, this is a Saudi matter.
Yeah,
and then,
this is an internal problem, we've got this one.
And then Senzig starts talking, and then they just get up and walk out. I think that was edited to look that way.
Yeah, I don't know if they... well, yeah. I don't think... No. I don't think it's...
But I do think they stopped listening and put on fucking Wham on their... they were listening to ooh ting tang walla walla bing bang on their headphones as opposed to her. But those two guys sat there.
How do you deliver justice? Right? He's the king of a country. The country has 80% of the world's oil. We need the oil. It's like me and you saying we're not going to use large corporations anymore. But we need our Apple laptops, right? Or our whatever laptops they are, Dell, because we need to talk to one another on this. We need all the stuff that, is used to run our podcast. We need diesel, right, to get to our gigs, right? 80% of the world's oil comes from Saudi Arabia. What do I go and buy a fucking horse? Is that how I get to the gigs now? If I decide to boycott everything,
it's an impossible mountain to climb, isn't it? And now they're heavily armed because they've bought all these fucking weapons from Donald Trump.
Exactly.
And us, that was one of the main arguments within the Newcastle takeover. It's like, look, you can't say these people, we can't let them have a football club, but they're allowed to buy all of our fucking guns from us. Do you know what I mean?
We do make some good guns. Why are they buying so many weapons, the Saudis?
Well, they're bombing the shit out of Yemen. There's a whole bunch of stuff they're doing. They're like ethnically cleansing countries in that area. There's a whole posture between there and other countries. And
I should really watch the news. Or you should bring this up in our pre-production meetings. Don't make yourself look a complete imbecile, Wills. The Saudis are really bad.
But the Congress, I mean, again, it's not... And if you think if we were to go to war... It's a war against one person making the decisions. Like, if you think of all those people that are regular people that live under oppression, those are the ones that are going to be fucking drone struck.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that are going to suffer massive losses and casualties. It's those armies of men that are going to go and women that are going to go and get fucking murdered for this one guy.
If my
what
comedy...
I say is, invite him over to the UK embassy. All right?
Go get some toffee havers.
Sit them in a room and just give them a tape of Newcastle United season 1996-97.
Here's what you could have won.
But so Congress passed a bill blocking the sales of firearms to the Saudis, which is a positive move.
That is an incredibly positive move. That's following on from the CIA investigation.
And then Donald Trump issued his veto and allowed the sales to proceed.
Yeah, we really listen. It's a lot of money, guys. No, hang on. They've been caught red-handed killing someone, and we're all about freedom of speech. That our entire nation is built on freedom of speech, Mr. President. Yeah, but it's a lot of money.
Can we just figure out a way to, elect people who don't do that? Across the board, you see it in Egypt, you see it in fucking where's Myanmar, the fucking Can we just work out? Do you know the people that are going to kill 30% of us? Can we not fucking hire them?
But here's the thing, right? I think you just doing this podcast with you over the last year, there is such a sensitive, beautiful side to you. You are a sarky prick, and I love that side of you as well. But there's a really kind side to you that just when you say certain stuff on this podcast, at times I'm genuinely touched, and I get goosebumps when you speak sometimes. I'm like, fucking hell, man, that is absolutely beautiful. But
you're not going to give me my half of the Podbean money this week, are
you? But listen, if you were put in charge of the country, you would do some really shitty stuff. And I know that's not within you, but when you're in charge of the country, it will just bring it out of you. I think being in charge of a lot of shit makes you act like a bit of a tyrant. I reckon Boris Johnson is probably before he got into politics, he was probably an all right geezer.
He wasn't, unfortunately. Again, there'll be some documentaries someday on that fucking. Like, you're right. Yeah, to be honest, that's the thing. Anyone who wants to run the country isn't a good person.
Yeah, that's the Obama quote, isn't it? Anyone who wants to be in power should be restricted from being in power.
Well, I didn't know that was an Obama quote. I'm glad we're on the same lines. I once said a joke that Jason Manford had something similar to, and I thought maybe I should go into comedy. So who knows? Maybe I can bring change. No, obviously I don't have the fucking work ethic. But I think it's the system of it. But I also think there's no real education on politics. You're either one side or you're not. It's treated like a football team in this country.
Yeah.
And we're not going to get into a political chat because they get fucking brutal between us.
Yeah.
But so if you were to, like, again, reform's a fucking excellent word. If you were to, like, say, listen, these are the people at an early age, if you had classes going, these people are making these decisions in your area. This is the platforms they're on. This is who you're voting for. And then, again, but it's a company, isn't it? It's two companies, it's two parties. If you don't follow that party line, you don't get to stand at the front and wear the big badge that says you're the winner. Yeah. So you have to follow that. So I have no fucking clue.
Are you a red or a blue? Pick a side.
Like I said, I am. I didn't realize how left wing I was until I started doing this podcast. To be fair, but I will always caveat that with it's very easy to be left wing when you're skint.
And also, I will back up that quote by going, I didn't realize how right wing I was until I started doing this podcast. I didn't. But
just roll in an echo chamber. We've all got the conversations we have, and then that's that, And again, our opinions, it's into the void. Nothing fucking matters. But when you look into it, there's two sides. There's the side that's, the tiki torch carrying fucking Proud Boys, racist America, the Tommy Robinsons, the Nigel Farage shit. And then on the other side, you've got people saying that you can lose your job for the bus company because you used the wrong pronoun 10 years ago, and they're screaming as well. And you're like, it's almost like, which one do I want to be like, is what people go near. And then it filters down.
Can we get to a middle ground? No, you can't. Yeah. Pick a side, red or blue.
And you don't know which one's true and which one's false because, like, there is, like in Saudi Arabia, which one's the false bots to enrage the other side. I see things like clickbait of saying Aliens versus Predator is transphobic and should be banned. And that then gets all the right-wing nuts annoyed and sending that up as an example of this is what left-wing people think. And do you know what I mean? You never hear someone's actual core values or what they're going for because, in essence, we'd probably have the same direction.
Yeah.
Other than on the right, if something cost me £10 more, you deserve to die because you don't work hard enough.
It's fucked, and we can't win. I don't think fairness can win. I really don't. It's fucking miserable. And then this documentary ends, and effectively, you're then hit with just a bunch of information in text. So Saudi Arabia tried 8 people. No one is allowed to know who they were or where they went, but 3 of the suspects were cleared. You've got to have some serious shit on someone to get off on that charge, right? And the 3 people,
one of them's the one carrying the bone saw.
Yeah. He was the head of information. How fucking convenient.
If you love your true crime, your geopolitical thing, this is a great documentary because it shows you, and it's just like, listen, how is this rogue when they arrive on the prince's jet? When they have these transcripts to say this and that, and then they go through it in a painstaking detail, and they even have a transcript of someone before he gets there explaining how we're going to cut up the body and where we're going to put it.
They employed a specialist to cut up the body and said, normally we'd hang him, a butcher would hang him from the ceiling because it's easier. This is quite difficult. Yeah, it must be tough, mate. Omar's brothers... Right, his YouTube channel is still going well, but Omar's brothers and all his mates are still in jail and no charges have been filed. That's
Matt's cat's Saudi. Not had a phone call yet.
Twitter admitted that it had been hacked and suspended 88,000 accounts from Saudi Arabia who were doing naughty things. 88,000, Jesus. To date, there have been no global sanctions against Saudi Arabia. If you want to learn more, take action, make difference, go to thedissident.com. And
I've
then
got 1 or 2 points to make on.
the end music was very sad, but did you notice the special thanks? He got a whole scene of a whole credit of special thanks just to himself. Did you see that?
You missed the last bit of information they give you.
Did I?
Which was the G20 summit in 2021 was held in Saudi Arabia. So they're being allowed back in.
Well, they've got 80% of the world's oil. They were never removed away from the table.
Well, no, like, because a lot of people did disavow them and stuff like that, but the fact that the G20 is now held, I'm not saying...
Yeah, I know. Nothing's happened to them. They can put 8 blokes in prison, right? But those 8 blokes, they probably didn't do anything wrong.
Those 8 blokes were well-tipped bellboys at the fucking embassy.
They might not even exist.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah, we had a trial. But yeah, the end credits, the special mention, and he got a whole credit to himself, Sean Penn.
Sean Penn?
Yeah, he got a special thanks.
Yeah, how come?
And then George Clooney is only mentioned in the general special thanks. I don't know why. I never Googled this stuff because I was already depressed. We watched Seaspiracy yesterday.
Yeah.
And I feel sadder for watching this documentary. And what do we do now? How do you feel about your football team now?
Well, this is what I was trying to resolve in my mind. So, the Saudi Arabian Public Investment Fund was trying to purchase Newcastle United. We've mentioned that. It then goes to the Premier League of Arbitrations and like the approval panel, whether or not it's fit and proper people. Now, the fit and proper people test is a pretty short document, which is to prove you have enough money to purchase a football club.
Yep.
They, in the bylaws, didn't actually think to put in, if you're an evil fucking king of a country, you're not allowed to buy a football club. But they're saying there's 2 stumbling points, because I don't think the Khashoggi one, because if you think there's no blood in Roman Abramovich's past, you're a fucking madman.
Oh, of course. Yeah, absolutely.
The Khashoggi murders wasn't really the issue. It was a sports piracy thing, which beIN Sports is their main broadcast in the Middle East, and then a piracy firm called Be Out Sports just hijacked their feed, and they played it on Saudi Arabian TV. And for 10 years, when they were emailing saying you need this taken down, the Saudis, the minute they wanted a football club, just said, "Oh, sorry, you're emailing the wrong department, so we didn't answer you." So they've pissed off the Premier League greatly doing that. And then they find a loophole to say that a state can't buy a football club. That is one of the things within. But it's not the state that is buying Newcastle United. It is the Public Investment Fund.
Right. Okay.
Which is...
similar to Man City.
Yes, exactly similar to Man City. Now... I'm glad they didn't mention Newcastle United once during this documentary, if I'm honest. But, it's you don't want Prince MBS running your club, but I have to be honest, I don't think for 1 second if the Public Investment Fund bought Newcastle United, would he be running the club? No, I don't think so.
And effectively, that money, if you've ever gone on, and if you are against, say, the Public Investment Fund owning Newcastle United and you want to do something about it, so get rid of your car, stop using public transport, turn off your heating, because there is, in some way, oil was used to build those plastics.
Yeah, and this isn't an argument.
Get rid
this
of
is
all
kind
of that. In
this
fact,
is me doing mental...
Not a tent. Go and live in...
I see where you're going with it.
Just disconnect completely. But whatever you do, you can't have any plastics in your life.
Because
that
here's
all
the
comes
thing.
From the oil industry, from Saudi Arabia.
Against the...
We can't win.
Against the whole takeover thing, and seeing how they branded the WWE events, I do think they're going to slap some Saudi propaganda on Newcastle United. But if you think 80,000 Twitter trolls are going to shut up those fans if we start losing away to Everton every week, You're
Well,
gonna
you
need a
reckon
big.
you and your mates, unlike the rest of the planet, couldn't bring down Saudi Arabia. You reckon you and your mates
No,
will?
I just think he can't take criticism, and it would send him fucking mental. I think that, you're gonna have YouTubers disappearing because they're going. I think you're going to have managers that won't walk away from their compensation. I'm looking at you, Steve Bruce, sitting on 4 million when you get us relegated. I think you're gonna. I think Mario Pochettino was in a fucking basement over the summer waiting to sign a contract.
Yeah, maybe. So would see? I'm more now. I'm so confused about whether I'm for or against. Let's just
What
talk
I'm
about
trying
the
to say
documentary.
is the Rocky Four of, if you can change, then I can change. Everybody can change. Maybe the sport of football can bring us all together.
The minute you quote Rocky to me, I'm in. Right, give us. I adore Stallone. Give me your score.
I'm giving this a 4.5. This is about as in-depth as it fucking gets. It was short. Wasn't the easiest thing to follow, but man, does that show you about how the world is being fucking ran in a light.
Yeah.
Because, the Twitter bots, the fact Jeff Bezos' phone is hacked. I mean, let's be honest. Like,
God,
how many...
yeah.
I don't know if it's just me, but my fucking Facebook Messenger message requests is just nothing but click here, please. I want you to show me fucking boobs. And how many of those are that kind of fucking spyware coming through, all that kind of stuff?
Mine was click here. I want you to see my boobs. Until,
that's just because you weren't messaging me back, Matt.
Well, no, until February when I turned 50. It's now about retirement homes and funeral care plans. My whole feed has changed completely.
Click here, I'll tell you if your prostate's okay.
Yeah. The boobs have gone now. It's all about that.
But we've had a bit of a joke about it, but I will say, Sarah is not wrong that these people are immoral and shouldn't run a football club. I just think Mike Ashley is also immoral and shouldn't run a football club, and I think these guys would be better at it. But that's a hard watch for someone who's in for this man to buy their favourite thing. If MBS wanted to buy this podcast, I'd be very hard inclined to say no to him.
That would be tough, right? If he came in and made an offer where me and you...
If he goes for the £10 and starts to make us do documentaries about how Khashoggi was a piece of shit... we should have raised the tariffs.
Well, we did say that was in the rules. We've checked it, and it doesn't say in the Patreon rules that estates can't join the Patreon.
Matt's going to go into his living room now, and the guy who tipped him in the hotel is just sat there in the dark with a shisha hanging out of his mouth.
Hello, Mr. McCall. Hello, Matthew.
2 red notes on the side of his lazy boy going, "We need to talk."
Did I ever tell you when I worked in that hotel one night, for a couple of nights actually, I got drunk with an arms dealer.
Yeah. Fascinating
man. Absolutely fascinating. Yeah, he was an arms dealer. Proper, Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
So,
but again, this is in London, so anyone after 3 drinks pretends they're a hell of a lot cooler than what they are.
Well, yeah.
He probably sold a BB gun on the market. He was like, yeah, I can get you an AK-47.
What do you need? So that's 4.5 from me, 4.5 from Rick. That's 9. That's not bad.
That's why it's up there for one of the best documentaries of the year.
Bryan Fogel, man. That guy knows what he's doing.
And I didn't have to see any fucking whales with their throats cut on this one, so that got an extra point for me.
Yeah.
Fucking Seaspiracy.
We are doing Dog Groomers, Chicken People 2 tomorrow, I'm telling you. Right, thank you very much.
Matt's going to find out that Dog Groomers is actually about people abusing dogs and luring them online.
That would break my heart, wouldn't it?
With promises of whale treats.
The picture they had, all funny coloured hair. Thank you very much for downloading this episode. Without you, we are nothing. So thank you very much. Goodbye. Rick, say goodbye.
Thank you very much, and no hard feelings to Sarah.
Sarah!
Jesus wept. Courtney Love as well, she's fine.